Hi Lacey, I just wanted to hop on here and give you a nice and thorough presentation of my unit plan outline. I apologize in advance for the very poor quality video. My PowerPoint video is not working or my Screencastify, so I guess we are doing it the old-fashioned way by recording my screen with my phone, which is kind of ironic because it's not very old-fashioned. Anyways, I am Lexi, and I have done this presentation a bazillion times, so let's hope that this is the last time, and let's hope that I can cover this in a very effective way. So, the grade level that I used for my unit plan outline was 4th grade. Students in the 4th grade are in what is often called the golden age of art. It is called this because students begin to create a new way of art, one composed of a mixture of new representational concepts they are exposed to and a budding realism. Students in this stage have improved hand-eye coordination and a better command on smaller muscle groups. This results in finer details being exhibited within their art. Students at this stage begin to recognize and express differences in people, as well as begin to form separate ideas of sex groups. It is also important to note that students at this stage are becoming much more capable of responsibility, and to nurture this responsibility, it is very important for us to give them tasks that require order and cooperation. Excuse me. My unit title is Expressing Our Feelings. A quick unit overview. I don't know why I keep saying quick, or I might have said that in the last video, but it probably will not be quick. Anyways, in this unit, students will be learning about multiple modes of healthy expression of feelings. The first lesson the students will participate in is a health lesson, in which the students will explore healthy ways to express different types of emotion. Some forms of expression that they will learn about include interpersonal expression, independent expression, verbal expression, written expression, and expression through the creation of art. After the students have taken time to explore different types of healthy expression and the importance of healthy expression, they will partake in a literature lesson. During this lesson, the students will create a piece of poetry to express a certain feeling in writing. They will learn about a few different structures of poetry. They will not learn about a few different structures of poetry. They will be writing in free verse, so they will learn about one structure of poetry. I will go in and edit that. After this lesson, the students will move forward to a lesson on art expression. I will teach the students about art as a healthy form of expression. In this piece of the lesson, we will look at work from Kwang Ho Shin. We will use Shin's work for aesthetics, critique, history, and production. The students will create a piece of art in the likeness of one of Shin's paintings from his mixed emotion collection. This piece of art will correspond with the poem they created in the previous lesson. The students will use the techniques of Shin, but instead of using oil paint, they will use tempera paint, which is more appropriate for their grade level. Alright, so for my unit integration, I'm doing health, literature, language arts, and art. The national visual art standards that I chose were understanding and applying media techniques and processes. The achievement standards for this are that students know the difference between materials, techniques, and processes. They describe how different materials, techniques, and processes cause different responses. They use different materials, techniques, and processes to communicate ideas, experiences, and stories. And they use art materials and tools in a safe and responsible manner. I apologize, I am breathing so much. I do not feel the greatest and my throat hurts a lot. My second standard is choosing and evaluating a range of subject matter, symbols, and ideas. The achievement standards for this are that the students will explore and understand perspective content for works of art. Students select and use subject matter, symbols, and ideas to communicate meaning. I chose 3 visual art standards for these lessons. When making works of art, utilize and care for materials, tools, and equipment in a manner that prevents danger to oneself and others. I think this is super appropriate and goes along very well with this idea of giving 4th grade students tasks that require order and responsibility. I also chose the standard analyze components and visual imagery that convey messages, and interpret art by referring to a contextual information and analyzing relevant subject matter, characteristics of form, and use of media. For my first lesson, I will be teaching a health lesson, and in this lesson, students will explore multiple ways of healthy expression. My objectives for this lesson are that students will be able to identify and describe at least 3 ways of healthy expression of emotions and feelings. Students will also be able to use at least 2 examples of positive language to express their feelings in a healthy way to appear during a simulated interpersonal incident. The motivational activity for this lesson plan is that the teacher will not give an introduction before the motivational activity. In this way, students can consider and think about what the lesson is about before being told explicitly. This is meant to spark interest and get the students thinking actively. The teacher will start by showing 2 videos. It does not matter what order the videos are shown in. One video is of an incident between 2 people in which they do not express their emotions in a healthy way, resulting in a negative fight. The second video is of a person alone in their room. The person is mad at themselves for failing a test. They are expressing their emotions by punching a wall, crying, and saying negative things about themselves. The teacher will play each video. After each video, the students will fill out 2 sticky notes, one of what they thought was wrong and one of what they thought the person could do to express their emotions in a better way. They will place these on either side of a T-chart that the teacher will create on the board. The T-chart will be labeled what was done and how it could be done better. Once each video is done and each chart is filled, the teacher will lead an open discussion about the videos. The teacher will ask the students to share their ideas from their sticky notes, and the teacher will also prompt students further by asking, could they do anything else? What would you do if you were them? The purpose of this activity is to get students thinking about the expression of emotion in multiple contexts, independent and interpersonal. So after this motivational activity, the students are going to move on to the lesson activity. The teacher will give a brief introduction to the lesson. Now that we have done that little activity, what do you think this lesson is over today? Right, expressing emotions. The teacher will hold a short discussion about the content. Why do we think it is important to be able to express our emotions in a healthy way? In what ways do you think we can express emotions? The teacher will record student ideas on the board as the discussion goes on. The teacher will pass out worksheets for the students about some of the different ways to express emotions in a positive way. The teacher will use an anchor chart to teach the students about healthy ways to express emotions and independently and during interpersonal encounters. Once the students have participated in the short lecture about healthy expression, they will partake in a simulation activity. Students will be paired up. Each set of students will be given a simulation card. The cards will read something like, your friend has made a new friend, and you feel like your friend is not giving your friendship enough attention anymore. You are upset and jealous of the new friendship your friend has made. The students will each go through 2 interpersonal simulations. This way, the students can each have a chance at being the student who is addressing their feelings. They also will both get practice at receiving someone else's feelings. The students will use positive language, and this goes back to the objective, to express their feelings and work through these simulations. The students will then go back to their desks independently, and they will be given an independent simulation. An example of this is, you have just found out that you failed the test. You are mad at yourself because you feel you should have done better. You feel like you are not smart because your friend got an A. The student will write at least 8 sentences to explain how they are feeling and at least 4 things they could do to express these feelings in a healthy way, which also goes back to the objective. For the cleanup activity, students will turn in their individual reflections, and the students will also turn in their independent simulation cards and interpersonal simulation cards to the correct folder. For evaluation, the students will complete an exit ticket. The exit ticket will ask the students 2 questions. These questions will cover both interpersonal and independent expression. The students will also be evaluated based on their simulation they perform with a peer. The teacher will evaluate the students as they perform their simulation. The teacher will assess the student on their use of at least 2 examples of positive language, which also goes back to the objective. The materials used for this will be the motivational activity materials, so that's the T-chart on the board, the 2 videos, a sticky note for each student, and pencils for the students to fill out the sticky notes. For the lesson activity, the worksheet that they will have is a duplicate of the anchor chart that the teacher will have that they will fill out during the lesson, and then also the anchor chart for the teacher to teach. So here is an example of my anchor chart. It says expressing our emotions. Why is it important for us to be able to express them? Positive language to use when expressing our emotions. Expressing emotions with others. Expressing emotions by myself. Tips for expressing emotions when I'm alone. And activities I can do to help. All right, and then they also have an exit ticket. What are 3 ways to express our emotions in a healthy manner? What are 3 activities that you can do to express your emotions alone? And what activity do you think you will use next time you are feeling a difficult feeling? Lesson 2 is the literature lesson in which students will be working with poetry. The objective for this lesson is that students will be able to utilize the format of free verse poetry to write a poem expressing a difficult feeling, writing at least 10 lines of poetry with a title. Students will be able to use at least 3 symbols within their poem to express the idea of the difficult feeling they are writing about. So the motivational activity for this particular lesson is that the teacher will have a bucket of popsicle sticks. The popsicle sticks will have different emotions and feelings. The students will one by one select a popsicle stick from the bucket. The students will be given yarn, a hole punch, and white cardstock. They will also be given crayons and markers. They will create a flip book with their materials. Each page of the flip book will be labeled with one of the 5 senses. Excuse me, I cannot talk today. Once the flip book is created, they will add a title on the front page. This title will incorporate the name of the feeling on their popsicle stick. The students will then work independently to complete their flip book using symbols of sense that make them think of the feeling. For example, lonely feels like cold bed sheets. Lonely tastes like plain milk. Lonely looks like an empty football stadium. They will draw a simple image to go along with their words. Once the students have finished their flip books, we will get together as a class in a circle on the floor and share some of our ideas from our books. This activity is a great motivational activity because it gets students thinking about ways to represent feelings with multiple senses. It will also give them ideas of ways in which they can use symbols in their poem to express a feeling. For the lesson activity, this is where the students are going to actually be writing poetry. So the teacher will now explicitly introduce the lesson. All right, class, so what did we just talk about? Yes, feelings. We have been talking a lot about feelings. Yesterday, we talked about some different ways that we could express our feelings when we are alone. Excuse me. One of them was by talking to ourselves with positive language. What were some others? Yes, writing and making art. Today, we are going to be practicing using writing to express our feelings. We're going to focus specifically on a feeling we have a hard time expressing. What are some feelings you have a hard time with? Negative feelings. Lonely? Good, what else? Anger, sadness, jealousy, heartbreak? These are feelings that many of us have faced. Like we said yesterday, it is important for us to be able to work with these feelings in a healthy way in order for us to grow and feel calm with ourselves. The teacher will read an example of a feelings poem to the students. Teacher will highlight specific symbols they used in their poem. The teacher will place the definition of a free verse poem on the board. The teacher will also place their poem on the board for students to refer to. The teacher will also write at least 10 lines, at least 3 symbols. The teacher will ask the students to take 2 minutes to close their eyes and think of a feeling they found to be very difficult in life. Their teacher will turn off the lights and play piano music to allow the students a peaceful moment of reflection. When the 2 minutes is up, teacher will turn on the lights and send the students to any spot they would like to sit in the room to write their poem. Students will turn in their poem to the teacher when they are finished. For the cleanup activities, the students will put hole punch, yarn, and paper an extra paper back where they belong in the supply station. The students will also turn in their poem to the teacher and go back to their seats. For the evaluation activity, the students will be evaluated on their final poem. The teacher will check to see what they wrote, or that they wrote at least 10 lines and used at least 3 symbols, as well as have a title. That is a typo. The teacher will provide feedback for editing and return to the students. The students will type their final poem after editing the next day. So for the materials for this activity, hole punch, cardstock, yarn, crayons, markers, and here is an example of a page from the flip book, Lonely Tastes Like Plain Milk, and a picture of milk. And for the lesson activity, actually writing the poem, the students will need paper and a pencil. All right, so I am now going to move on to the art lesson, and I'm going to start with the aesthetics section. So for the aesthetics section, it will be 30 minutes long, and for my teaching methods, I will use lecture, model, and discussion. For class organization, the class will be seated in a large circle on the ground. The teacher will be seated on the ground as well. All students will be able to see each other's faces as well as see the teacher. This way, all students can participate. For my objectives for the students will be able to express their personal opinions and reasonings for the opinions about the value and beauty of a piece of artwork. For my motivational activity, students will all judge the value and beauty of 5 different works of art. These works of art are all related to the theme of emotions and feelings. The students will rank the photos from 1 to 5. This is very similar to the picture walk done in AD201. Once the students have rated them, we will have an open discussion about their feelings of the art and why they feel this way. I will ask questions such as, why do you feel this way? Do you think this is beautiful? How much do you think these are worth? Why did you give this one a lower rating than this one? This will get the students to begin vocalizing and expressing aesthetics, although they will not know that they are working explicitly on aesthetics. For the lesson activity, I will start with a brief introduction, or the teacher will start with a brief introduction. When you explained to me how you felt about the value of those paintings and why you felt that way, you were discussing the aesthetics of the art pieces. The aesthetics is the value and beauty of something. The teacher will write the definition of aesthetics on the board. Under this, the teacher will write what gives something value or beauty. Students and teacher will come up with ideas and add them to the board under the question. Now that we have discussed things that can bring value, beauty, and meaning to something, let's look at another painting. This is when the students will look at the painting that this entire art lesson is based on, Mixed Emotions by Shin. We are going to use these ideas to come up with your reasons for feeling a certain way. I'll go first. I do enjoy this painting. It is valuable to me because it makes me feel calm. I think it is beautiful because I feel it tells a story of having many emotions, and I value being able to have many of my own feelings and emotions. Students will write at least 5 sentences to express how they feel about the value of painting and why. They will then share their ideas and thoughts. This will go back to the objective. For the cleanup activities, the teacher will put away the prints from the picture walk, and the students will collect their numbers from the scoring activity. For the evaluation, the students' written opinion and reasons of the opinion that they created in the lesson activity will be used for the teacher to evaluate. This also goes back to the objectives. The materials that I will be using are paper squares numbered 1 through 5. Here are the prints of art that I'll be using. So this is the Mixed Emotions by Shin. Here's an unnamed image of Colorful Girl by Michaela Schelt. Anger by Alsoth. Old Man and Sorrow on the Threshold of Eternity by Van Gogh. And Solitude by Daler Usmanov or something like that. And Melancholy by Constance Marie Carpentier. Alright, the next lesson that we are doing for art is the art criticism section. This is also going to be 30 minutes. I'm going to use game, lecture, and practice as my methods for teaching. For class organization, the class will transition to their desks for this portion of the art lesson. Their desks will be in clustered groups and they will work with their group during this part of the lesson. The objective for my student is that students will be able to use Brody's stages of art criticism to describe a piece of artwork based on recognition of subject matter and technical and sensory properties, analyze based on recognition of formal art properties, interpret based on consideration of expressive properties, and judge a piece of artwork in both a subjective and objective way. So that's a lot of words for explaining that they will use Brody's stages of art criticism, and we will see this in their evaluation. The motivational activity that I will give the students is that the students will play a review game over the elements and principles of art. This game is intended to refresh the students' minds about different aspects that they will be searching for during the following art criticism lesson. The intent is to familiarize the students with the principles and elements in order to better deepen their understanding and equip them for identification and consideration of aspects during the art criticism process. Students will play a fly swatter game. They will be broken into groups. Each round, the teacher will pull up an image of a specific element or principle. They will have definitions underneath the images. One student from each of the two teams will come up to the board. The names of all the elements and principles will be on the board. The elements will be on one side and the principles on the other. The teacher will read the definition and the students will search for the element or principle on the board and swat at it. They will continue rounds until all principles and elements have been covered. For the lesson activity for this lesson, the teacher will start with a brief introduction. Class, what did we just review? Right, principles and elements. We have learned how to judge art based on aesthetics, and now we are moving forward to criticism. The teacher will give the students a brief lecture on art criticism. The teacher will use an anchor chart to cover Brody's stages of art criticism. The students will then begin to practice art criticism using the following questions as guidance. They will be critiquing the same piece from the last lesson, Mixed Emotions by Shin. The students will work in small groups to fill out an outline for the criticism of the piece. The outline follows Brody's stages. Students will discuss the following questions aloud as they complete the worksheet. So for my description stage questions, I have, what part of this painting stands out to you the most? What elements stand out to you in this painting? How do the colors of this painting make you feel? What do you think the artist used when making this piece of art? And then for my analysis stage questions, where do you see colors repeated in this painting? Why do you think the artist repeats these colors? Do you see balance within this painting? Does this painting have unity? Why? For my interpretation stage questions, I have, how does this painting make you feel? What do you think the artist is trying to express? Why do you think the faces are made of color? Oh, sorry about that. There we go. Why do you think the faces are made of color? Why is this doing that? I apologize. There we go. All right. And what do you think the painting means? For the evaluation stage questions, do you like this painting? What would you change about it if you could? Would you change anything about it? And overall, do you think the artist did a good job? For the cleanup activity, the students will turn in their worksheets and they will go back to their individual desks after. For the evaluation activity, the students will be evaluated based on the completion of their criticism activity worksheet. The teacher will use these worksheets to guide any correction and teaching of misconceptions. So the materials used for this lesson will be the fly swatters and the criticism outline based on Brody. So here I designed an art criticism worksheet that the students will be doing, and it is Brody's stages of art criticism. It says describe, what do you see? Do you see line? Where? Do you see shape? Where? Do you see color? Where? Texture? Where? Size? Where? Space? Where? Form? Where? What do you think the artist used to make the art? Analyze. Which of the principles does the artist use? How does the artist use them? Where do you see this in the art? Interpret. What do you think this means? What do you think the artist is trying to say? How does this make you feel? Do you see any symbols in the art? Evaluate. What is done well in this painting? Do you like this painting? And what do you like? And what don't you like? Through the completion of this worksheet and the answering of the questions above, the students will be meeting the objective that was set for them. All right, so for the art history section of the lesson, it is also going to be 30 minutes, and my teaching methods are self-exploration, video, and discussion. For this lesson, the class will be sitting together in a circle on the floor again, and they will transition up and down from the board to their seat. They will also work in pairs. My objective for this lesson, or part of this lesson, is that students will be able to write a description of the art movement of Expressionism, including the time period it began, 2 key artists within the movement, and the meaning of the movement. I just want to take a quick side note. I chose to do the entire movement of Expressionism because Sheen's artwork would be considered Expressionism, amongst other things that it would be considered, but because Sheen is a relatively modern artist, it is quite hard to find history on his work. Alright, so for the motivational activity, Sheen's artwork, which has been the focus of the entire art lesson, is classified as Expressionist art. The teacher will place Sheen's work with 4 other pieces of Expressionist art. The teacher will tell the students, "This is Expressionist art. Take 3 minutes to look at it and reflect. I want you to tell me what you think Expressionist art is." This is meant to be a very simple yet thorough, yet thought-provoking activity for the students to do. It is meant to get students thinking about a common theme amongst Expressionist art. I apologize, I keep messing up my words. The ideas that the students come up with will guide the teacher's introduction and teaching of the Expressionist movement. The students will pair up with a partner and share their ideas of what they think Expressionist art is. The students will then all write their idea on a large piece of construction paper on the board. Moving forward to the lesson activity, the teacher will show the students a short video on Expressionism. The teacher will then ask the students to pair up again with a different partner, and the pairs of students will come up with a refined idea of what Expressionism is. They will write this idea on a new sheet of construction paper on the board. The teacher will then put up a third sheet of construction paper, and the teacher will lead a class in a discussion about what Expressionist art is. As the teacher and the students discuss, the students will come up to the board and fill in the last piece of construction paper. For the cleanup activities, the teacher will send the students back to their seats. The students will turn in their exit ticket. For the evaluation, the students will be evaluated on an exit ticket. The exit ticket will ask, what is Expressionism? What does it stand for? When did it begin? And who are 2 Expressionist artists? This goes back to the objectives. The materials for this particular lesson include the construction paper, exit ticket, an example of the completed chart, which I have down below, the video, in which we'll skip the first 2 minutes, and 4 pieces of Expressionist art. So I have The Scream by Edvard Munch, De Kooning, Woman with Red, can you see? Yep. Woman with Red Hair, Madame Kisling. And then here is an example of kind of what the final construction paper would look like that was created with the class. It says Expressionism. When did it begin? Early 1900s. What is it? It conveys emotions rather than reality, reflects more inside feelings and emotions, internal, often vivid colors and shapes used in the way the artist feels them, not just how they look, presents the world as feelings, not as they are seen in the world. Who were some famous Expressionists? Edvard Munch and August Macke. All right. For the last part of the lesson, I have my art production section. This is going to be 45 minutes, and for my teaching methods, it is lecture, model, and independent practice. For class organization, the students will be at the tables. 4 students will sit at each table. Tempera paints will be at the back counter. Palettes will be next to the tempera paints. Small cups for water will be next to the paints. Paintbrushes will be there too, as well as newspaper and paper towel. The objectives is that the students will create a self-portrait in the style of Sheen to express a difficult emotion, utilizing at least 2 tempera paint techniques, facial expression, and 1 color that they feel best symbolizes the feeling. The students will also be able to mix a color with black and white to create at least 2 tints and 2 shades. For the motivational activity, students will do a short review activity over tempera paint techniques, tints, and shades. The teacher will have a list of tempera paint techniques on the board. The students will roll a die. They will create the technique that corresponds with the number they roll. For each technique they practice, they will use a shade or a tint. The color that they will choose, the color that they will choose for this is the one that they are going to use for their final production. The teacher will explain to the students that they must choose a color that they feel best corresponds with and symbolizes the difficult emotion they will portray in their self-portrait. The students will collect their materials from the back before they begin the motivational activity. They will use the same materials from the motivational activity as the lesson activity. For the lesson activity, the teacher will start with, "What have we done so far, class?" Yes, we have collected our materials. We have practiced our tempera techniques, and we have practiced with our tints and shades. We are now going to use all of this and everything we have learned about expressing emotion to create a self-portrait in the likeness of Sheen. Sheen uses many colors to express the many feelings people can have. He also focuses on facial expression. Today, we are going to create our own self-portraits of expression, but we are going to use the one color that you chose earlier. What does this color symbolize? Right, our feeling or emotion. Here is mine, and I will show you that in 1 second. The teacher will write the guidelines for the project on the board, 2 tempera techniques, 2 tints, and 2 shades, facial expression, and color to symbolize difficult emotion. Student will work to complete their portraits. When they are dried, the students will mount them to a colored piece of paper, which would probably happen the next day. For cleanup activities, students will place paintings on the drying rack. They will wash paintbrushes and palettes at back sink. They will dump water, wipe tables, and will put all supplies back where they came from, which again I think is very important and goes along with this idea that 4th graders do need that responsibility of doing these things on their own, the same way that they will be collecting their own materials on their own. For the evaluation activity, the students will be evaluated based on their final piece of art. The rubric is here, and if they have met this rubric, they have also met the objectives set out for them. So the student uses 2 tempera techniques, chooses a color to symbolize a feeling, uses 2 shades, uses 2 tints, uses facial expression to symbolize a difficult feeling, mounts painting to paper, and uses space. So the materials, supplies, and equipment for this lesson is tempera paint, paintbrushes, paper, newspaper, water cups, and mounting paper. And here is an example of a final production. The 2 techniques that I used, I actually had to use acrylic paints. I didn't have tempera paints at my disposal, but I did underpainting and dry brush. As you can see, let me see if I can get this here. I did sadness, if that's not obvious. I used blue, and I did 2 tints and 2 shades, which are 2 with more white in them and 2 with black in them. I made sure to incorporate facial expression, the eyebrows pointing down, the eyes closed, the edges of the lips curled down, and there are also tears coming out of my eyes. So, yes, so in my painting, I was expressing the feeling of sadness, and I also met all of the criteria that was set out in the rubric. All right, so that is pretty much everything. I apologize for the length of this video. I didn't intend on just reading everything, but I was nervous that I would miss something important. So, yeah, that is my, sorry, I'm just scrolling. That is my unit lesson plan. And thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this. And I hope you have a wonderful day.